Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Always a sensible voice on all issues involving particularly the illegal migration, utter madness. But I have to say, Robert Bates, I mean, we've had so many stories about, the horrific, the rapes, the sexual assaults, the illegal working, the general criminality, the cost of people's legal representation, the cost of their accommodation, their food, the taxis to medical appointments. We never seem to hit that breaking point when the lefty right-on weight brigade go, oh yeah, you're right, this is insane. This story is a tiny drop in the ocean, and yet it's really got people's goats. This is the more than 70 boat migrants who arrived between April and November 2020, very specific time period, awarded between them £500,000 in compensation, £6,500 each, basically, because their phones were seized at the time, and now it turns out that was illegal, and it was in breach of their European human rights laws. What do you make of this madness?
Well, once you pay the Dane Guild, you never get rid of the Dane, and I think this is really indicative of those wider pull factors that we do know are a key reason why individuals choose to come to Britain rather than other European countries. But what this is indicative of is the fact that as soon as an individual's foot is on British soil, bestowed upon them is every single legal right, the ability to appeal, the ability to have things reviewed, the ability to claim your human rights have been breached, that actually probably should only really be reserved for those that are actually here in this country legally. I think, unfortunately, we've seen a whole architecture emerge, especially with human rights lawyers, where they almost pride themselves now on coming up with the most creative, outlandish ways to appeal.
As we were saying earlier, they're making a lot of money out of this. They're being paid usually by the taxpayer. So there was a £750,000 bill, £735,000 bill to fight this case, according to a Freedom of Information revelation. We don't get given this information unless it's dragged kicking and screaming out of the government. So we'll be paying for the government to defend it, but we'll also be paying for the legal aid for the migrants too, won't we?
Well, of course, and if you actually look at the individuals that have been doing the representation here, you can see they don't actually want a correct result by the letter of the law.
Yeah.
You know, the actual lawyer that represented these individuals is sort of boasts about being one of the most creative human rights lawyers in the country.
Brilliant.
Read into that, basically, he's able to come up with the biggest load of baloney to get the outcome that he wants. And unfortunately, this is a very real problem now. We are effectively funding this crisis ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think when you consider, of course, the asylum costs are a huge draw factor, but I really do think that actually it is just this sheer level of protection that we afford to every individual that is one of the key problems here.
But that protection comes mostly under Article 8, the right to privacy and a family life, under the European rights legislation. But there's one paragraph of that gives you that right, and then there's another paragraph with all the reasons why you have that taken away from you, for public safety, for criminality, for national security and everything like that. For some reason, our activists, not just lawyers, but our activist judges in the courts and the tribunals seem to always ignore that side of it, that we have rights too, and the rights of two different people or two different groups of people have to be weighed up together. But they always seem to side on the side of the illegal migrant.
Well, quite, and actually, you could well see the logic behind confiscating the phones off these individuals. We don't know who they are; they're unvetted.
They've entered illegally.
Contact with what they're planning when they're in this country. We've seen instances of Iranians coming into the country with the very explicit goal of committing atrocities, and taking away a mobile phone is quite a minor inconvenience for the individual, but it ensures a level of safeguarding for the British public at large. So this is another instance of a two-tier justice system where the well-being and safety of Brits, no, we can do without that. Let's try and get a quick book for
Absolutely. And again, we've seen also, the government cannot disclose, apparently does not know or will not tell us how many of these migrants who claim to be children are shown to actually ever be children in the end. We've had blokes in their 30s, for goodness sake, big burly airy blokes, people with receding hairlines claiming to be under 18. Absolute nonsense. And now we've got the latest. And again, how much madder can it get? This is a migrant, I'm assuming in the country legally, I don't know, a Filipino man who's in the country applying for indefinite leave to remain, hasn't actually got it yet, so he's not British citizen, but he's been given tens of thousands of pounds worth of treatment paid for by the NHS in a private hospital, paid for by us, to supposedly change sex. So he's had his todger cut off. He's had a load of surgery that's totally unnecessary, totally life-saving. And we've paid for it, and he's not even, at that time, wasn't even having a right to stay in the country. This is properly mad when there are people literally dying because they can't get health treatment when they're British citizens.
think when it comes to the NHS, and this is an absolutely ridiculous case, I think, unfortunately, there is some guidance on actually what foreign nationals should be entitled to when it comes to treatment. It's not strict enough, but unfortunately, it's very much down to the individuals on the ground to make these decisions. And you just know it will have been some sort of green-haired, rabid campaigner that has decided that this is somehow a worthwhile way to spend British taxpayers' money. And this is why we need much, much stricter parameters as to what foreign nationals are not entitled to when it comes to the NHS.
Because, emergency care only is my answer.
Well, or something that is perhaps long-saving, but even there's questions about whether actually we're seeing health tourism increasing in this country. There are hundreds of millions of pounds that are technically owed to the NHS by foreign nationals that's just simply not been paid up, and there's no intent from any administrative officer in these NHS trusts to actually chase up those bills.
Exactly. Well, because you got to remember, no one's illegal, are they, Robert? Everyone is entitled to live anywhere they want and live off the other taxes paid by everyone who's been here. It's genuinely madness. Robert Bates at the Centre for Migration